All right, thank you everyone for having me here. I am Adam Sharma. I am from Human IT. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Innovation and Partnerships here at Human IT, where we look to shrink the digital divide one piece of technology at a time. I'll get a little bit more into that shortly, but a little bit more about my background. I have my MBA from UCLA, Anderson School of Management, and a graduate Leaders in Sustainability degree from the Institute of the Environment and Sustainability at UCLA as well. I have been in my role here at Human IT for 4+ years, and looking to continue that great work with the group here and all sustainability networks across the country. So I'll get a little bit into what we do here, but I really like to set the stage here with for us, really, we just believe that the circular economy, reuse and repair specifically, for electronics and computing devices, is the best pathway for those items when they're no longer in use. So that's really what we base our entire company off of, and we'll get a little bit more into that in a second here. So every time I do one of these, I love to take a step back and look at the academic definition of sustainability. So for us, the definition of sustainability, it really falls at the center, at the intersection rather, of social impact, environmental impact, and economic impact. We'll get back to this in a little bit. So to take a step back, set the stage, we identified that there are two problems, two distinct problems in the world, in the digital world that we face. And then we defined them and came up with one solution, which again, we'll get into shortly. So problem number one, as most of you know, I'm sure, is e-waste. Over 112 billion pounds in e-waste was generated in 2020 alone. This grows 4% year over year. And we find that approximately 85% of discarded electronics in the US still end up in landfills. And a part of that is 70% of all toxic waste in landfills is from electronics or e-waste. And meanwhile, electronics only make up less than 5% of all landfill waste. So 5% of waste by volume, but 70% of toxic waste. It's a large issue for us here, and we're looking to make some progress there, as I'm sure you all know. One of the biggest issues here is recycling solutions that are in place currently just can't keep pace with it. A good example of this is Apple has a machine called the Daisy, which is designed to take apart iPhones. And it's great. It's still, it's still not reuse, so we're still saying that it's a little bit, it's not quite as good. But it takes apart the iPhones and it pulls apart the plastic, the glass, the metal, and all the parts to it. But if that machine ran 365 days a year, it can process 1.2 million iPhones, which sounds pretty good, until you realize that Apple sold 218 million iPhones in 2018 alone. So we're looking at about a little bit less than 0.5%, honestly, of what we're able to even process with that. So as I mentioned, really just not able to keep pace the way we would like it to. And then you have with phones, you're looking at about 400,000 plus phones per day are being discarded, and 150,000 computers. Now, while all these assets are being discarded, on the other side of the coin, we have problem number two, which is the digital divide. Right? So approximately 82 million Americans do not have a computer, high-speed internet, or either at home. Just taking a kind of a snapshot of the Dallas area, you're looking at just Dallas alone has 200,000 households with no wired internet, and another 30,000 in Arlington, another 12,000 in Plano. So the area, you can see how that adds up pretty quickly. So you're looking at very quickly 250,000 people who just don't have access. And that's households, right? So keep in mind the average household in the US in the last census is 2.6 people. So it's really 250,000 households, but probably well over 500,000 actual people and residents, citizens of the city. In addition, the as we progress and more digital tools are made available to us, it's estimated that 82% of jobs will require some kind of digital skill by 2025. Even to apply for jobs, right? You see people, if you walk into your local Target or Walmart, there's a computer terminal for people to fill out their applications. It's not a pen and paper form anymore. And then we know that low-income minority communities are hit very hard with these types of issues. And based on the gap in skills and the gap in productivity, it's an estimated 22 to 33 billion dollars in annual GDP loss, just due to lack of access and lack of folks' ability to use those tools. So, like I said, two problems. We moved into one solution. We combined these problems. We really saw it as a resource allocation issue, right? There's a lot of discarded material over here, and there's folks who need it over here. So we built a platform that takes in that excess technology. We provide it as a service to the businesses and to the organizations like yours, the colleges, nonprofits, municipalities, what have you. We repurpose these items and redistribute them to underserved communities. But we realize that that's not enough, right? We also provide access to affordable broadband internet. We provide digital literacy training, and then we provide tech support to make sure that all of those items can be used properly. Now let's take a step back a little bit and look into the benefits of reusing specifically electronics. Of course, there's benefits to reusing almost everything. So back to our little chart here, and we'll go one by one in the next couple slides. So let's look at the social impact, right? So we distribute devices to low-income families and households who do not have traditional access to that. We found after we do surveys, after we do our distributions, we found that students with a computer in 1 year have increased it by an entire letter grade just by having that resource in the home. We find that leads to more college admissions. Intrinsically, folks who are being successful in something are more motivated to continue to do whatever that thing is. So if someone's an exceptionally skilled musician, they're going to want to, when they succeed in music, they're going to continue doing that. So when someone does well in school, they're going to want to continue to go to school and seek more education. And we've shown that median earnings for those with a bachelor's degree is almost $25,000 higher. So, and that's just annually. So, there's a real benefit to continuing that work. Looking at another demographic, right, we were able to lower hospitalization rates and healthcare costs because they can more easily access telehealth and get care right preemptively, as opposed to going to the hospital or emergency room when something's gone terribly wrong, unfortunately. So with telehealth, especially with older adults with disabilities who may have mobility issues and are no longer driving, transportation is an issue, or even younger folks where transportation is an issue for them, being able to have a device at home and use those telehealth options is very helpful to them. The ability to access assistance programs is another one. Food assistance, SNAP programs across the country, any government assistance program, it's much easier to do the application online. We did a project with the state of California a couple of years ago, and state of California's paper form for food assistance is 38 pages long. And if you don't have something that you need, some piece of information or something that you have that day in the office, you have to go back home, find that thing, and then do it all over again, right? Whereas online, you can click save, you can go get your piece of information, you can come back a minute, a day, a month, a week later, whatever that is, right? So definitely need that. Definitely another place where that makes a big difference for folks. And then you have higher adoption of available benefits, right? For similar reasons. Moving on to the economic aspect of things. So there's two pieces of this one, right? So for users, especially the folks who are low income and unable to access a lot of these things, reconditioned devices are most cost effective. Simply, they're cheaper. We sell Chromebooks at approximately 40% of the price of a new one, and they're still very solid, great devices that still have a lot of life in them. And then tech support. If you're an organization and you work with someone like Human IT, being able to provide tech support through us means that your team doesn't have to, right? So your IT team should be making sure faculty and staff are up and running, making sure that they're able to do Zooms like this one or calls like this one, video calls, just making sure everything works, right? As opposed to just answering calls from users. So let us handle that. Let the practitioner handle that. It doesn't have to be us, of course. And then for companies, refurbishers typically charge businesses less for removal services, if any. We're structured as a 501c3 nonprofit, so we have some additional benefits for us, which we'll get into in a second. But if you look at a major university, let's say similar in size to the University of Texas that we work with, they saved approximately $200,000 annually. Just by switching and working with a nonprofit refurbisher versus their previous vendor. A smaller example is a local grocery store chain. So about 43 stores, they saved about $20,000 annually. So not the same, not the same budget there, but for the organization, it's still a pretty big, significant difference for them. HIPAA compliant data instruction saves IT staff time so they can perform regular duties. So it's HIPAA compliant, we're DoD compliant, and any reputable refurbisher should be able to offer this with no problems. But again, we have the ability to wipe up to 400 devices at any given moment. Whereas I know that most IT staffs are wiping the devices inside each individual computer, which does take quite a bit of time. So again, we want to give your IT staff the ability to do the work that is really adding more value to the business as opposed to just making sure that everything's okay on the back end. And then, like I said, we're a 501c3, so technically, everything that comes to us is an in-kind donation, right? So that gives you the benefit of writing those devices off if you're a private company. If you're a public entity, it's a little bit different there, but we're not tax consultants, so we just refer you back to your folks in finance there. The other thing you can write off is facilitation costs. So similarly to when, if I was to donate my time, I could write off my parking, my gas, things like that. Shipping and other fees that are associated, packaging and things like that, are also something that can be deducted. But again, not an accountant, so please consult yours. And then the environmental piece. After all, we are talking about sustainability here today. So one of the biggest pieces of benefits, right, is just fewer new devices need to be manufactured at this point, right? So manufacturing a new computer requires 530 pounds of fossil fuels, which is like filling up your car with gas 5 times. So that's pretty significant for a little thing that's weighs a couple pounds. Um, you see the other stats up there, but not only that, we're talking about devices that need to be shipped, usually from the Far East to the U.S., resulting in those types of emissions that are associated with that shipping, and then packaging. It becomes a problem as well. It's just creating more and more waste that's associated with every new device that we're doing. Right? Transforming electronics back into raw materials takes an incredible amount of energy and results in more emissions still, right? So when you're getting to those high temperatures to separate or to melt down some of those metals, to melt down some of those plastics, right? You're getting into some pretty high energy pieces. So one stat that helps back this up is recycling 1 million laptops save the energy equivalent to the energy that's used by almost 4,000 homes in the U.S. In a year, right? So if those million laptops are donated of instead of even being recycled, that's another 4,000 homes that we have, and the energy equivalent rather. The other piece is degradation, right? So every time most materials are recycled back into their raw form, they degrade. So a good example of this is a bicycle helmet, right? The plastic, the hard plastic in your bicycle helmet, right? First time that's recycled, it can go back into maybe something in your computer, a little bit softer plastic, still pretty hard. And then after that, maybe it becomes a plastic water bottle. After that, a plastic bag. And then unfortunately, after it's a plastic bag, those fibers are so short, they can't be processed again. And then, we have to look at other solutions to get rid of that device properly, or that material properly. So basically, keeping devices in their current form for as long as possible is the best course of action for our planet, and for the other aspects of things we talked about as well. We talked about landfills a little bit earlier, so I won't go back into that. And then sometimes in other countries, specifically that don't have some of the regulations that we have here in the US, some of this material is either burned in open pits, which just leaves behind the metals and the valuable materials in there. And in some countries, in some places, we see acid being used to do that, to eat away at the plastics and things like that. That only leaves the metal. And this can lead to air pollution, health issues in those communities that are processing that. So we'll jump a little bit more about human IT. And our vision is really a world where conscious capitalism drives sustainable and equitable opportunities for people, the planet, and organizations. So everybody wins. You get that triple bottom line that I'm sure folks are talking about here. A couple of our values. The one thing that's really important to us that I'll touch on here is social entrepreneurship, because we believe that we can be successful and do good for the planet at the same time. We don't have to make those mutually exclusive like they've traditionally been. And then moving a little bit forward, let's talk about kind of the journey of an item when it comes to human IT. So, number one, tech donations are diverted from landfills. As soon as they hit our doors, they're assessed, right? And first of all hard drives are pulled and put into a secure facility inside of our secure facility. So hard drives are separated from that. They take their own journey to get wiped and ensure that everything's clean there. I'll touch a little bit on that in a second. And then anything that's truly e-waste, we'll make sure that that's going to get properly recycled. So think about a laptop where the screen is separate from the keyboard and the rest of the material. So obviously something that cannot be repurposed any longer. Then we go into the secondary sorting process, which identifies what type of device is it. Is it a computer, laptop, cell phone? In that case, it's going to go right down into our programs where we provide free or low cost computers to low income individuals and households across the country. If it's something more like a server, an MRI machine, something more enterprise specific, that's something that we will sell in the secondary market. Again, making sure that we're promoting reuse, keeping those items in their highest best use. And then the funds go back into the business to fund the digital literacy training courses and some of the other programmatic resources that we offer. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So coming back around to the data security piece of everything, I mentioned everything is separated once it is arrived in our facility. We do a NIST 888 data wipe. So that basically is random data is overwritten onto every section of the drive, which is different from just erasure because that data is just still sitting underneath there, ready to be overwritten. Instead, we make sure that it is overwritten. And then it's rescanned and verified as well. So we make sure that that happens and that gets accomplished. So think of the hard drive like a record. We just make sure that every groove is all set. And the industry standard for verifications is 30%. We do 100% verification on ours. And then you see a list there of some other compliance pieces. Another benefit to businesses that we offer is itemized reporting. So you'll get make, model, and serial number of any primary asset, which is any asset with data on it. And then reusable assets will do just make, model, quantity because not many companies keep track of their office phone serial numbers. And then there's other small accessories, which we'll just do in weight. Getting back into some of the programs that I mentioned earlier, right? We provide devices. We do new and refurbished devices to organizations, low-income folks, and nonprofits, governments, municipalities, educational systems, what have you. High-speed, low-cost internet connections. So we can provide a hotspot, or we can direct somebody to the best available option for them. These are all going to be the low-cost plans. So think Cox Connect to compete, and then every local provider should have some low-cost plan. I mentioned we also provide digital literacy classes. Those are what we call a pre-beginner class. Very important to make sure that people can take advantage of the other great utilities that are out there, right? There's a lot of amazing resume workshops and skills building classes, coding boot camps. But if you don't have basic skills for a computer, a lot of people we find are very uncomfortable, scared, or just embarrassed that they don't have those basic skills. And so they do not partake in the digital world as much as they could. So that's what our digital literacy classes are built to do. And then the tech support as well that I mentioned. So last year we provided Detroit Public Schools with tech support. And then we also provide that tech support for a year for any device we distribute, no matter what program it goes through. And we also include hardware warranty for a year on that too, even if it's a refurbished item. A couple quick notes from last year here. We opened a facility in Focus Hope in Detroit, so expanding our footprint just a little bit here. Our Midwest headquarters is now located there. We were able to deploy over 70,000 devices back into the community, primarily with the educational system, but also for older adults, also for adults with disabilities, so on and so forth. And then we partnered with the statewide California Department of Education to make sure that every school had access to these resources should they need them. And then a quick list of partners here. You see UCLA, which is similar to the University of Texas. You have some other organizations there. Some folks in your area, in Dallas specifically, Wonderful Citrus, Blue Apron, some other folks in the educational space are USC, Webster University. So we work with a very wide variety of folks. Everyone's got tech, so not too much there. Not too much to explain there, rather. Benefits of using human IT, just to kind of wrap things up here. We will ensure your technology does not go to a landfill or contaminate the environment in any way. We'll take care of your data. We'll take care of your students, your staff, everyone's data that's on there. We're going to make sure that that's getting safely protected and destroyed. You can write off your check if you're a private organization. And then what we really want to do is provide those opportunities right back into your communities. So happy to work with any organization to do that. And just to wrap things up here, ways to partner, mentioned the e-waste things. We can provide you with low cost devices anytime your IT staff does a refresh, or if there's any programmatic pieces in the community, the high-speed internet access, and then of course we can provide third-party tech support for everyone. Just a quick piece on who we provide, what that low income person looks like. If you qualify for any government benefit, you would qualify for this. So if students are on free reduced price lunch, Section 8 housing, WIC, Social Security, disability insurance, so on and so forth. So I won't take up any more of everyone's time here. I'm hoping that the conference is going well for everyone. And I'll just leave a little bit of contact information at the end. And I look forward to meeting some of y'all.